This is an RNZ podcast.
Bonjour mes amis, je m'appelle Ben Strang. I'm the host of RNZ's Paris Essentials podcast. Well, the Olympics are underway, and in the process we learned that, well, not all Canadians are nice, is what we learnt today. This after members of the Canadian national women's team decided to spy on New Zealand with a drone. So this is a major story in Paris overnight, over the last couple of days. The staffer who's done this has been given an 8-month suspended prison sentence for it. Very quick judicial system over in France. The assistant coach, who was his boss, she's been sent home. He's been sent home as well. The coach, who used to be the head of football for New Zealand football, has stood down for this next match. So all a very chaotic time for the Canadian team, and it's put the New Zealand team under pressure ahead of their game tomorrow. Crazy start to things over there, but also a good one for New Zealand. 3 wins from 3 today, unbeaten at the Olympics. I think that means we're going to win every single medal we go for, which is excellent. We're not going to lose. We'll look at all of that and more during today's episode of Paris Essentials, and we'll also talk to Katie Kenny today. She's going to explain some of the new sports, and we're going to try to understand what breaking is. So let's start with this major spying scandal. The Canadian team have apologised for the incident, but as I said before, this is a major story over in Paris, and it's leading news bulletins in France and in Canada. Our sports reporter in Paris, Barry Guy, has been covering the story over there. He spoke to Morning Report's Ingrid Hipkiss this morning about the scandal, and he gave us an update on how our teams have started.
The Canadian women's football team has sent home 2 of its staff from Paris. This after a spying scandal involving the New Zealand women's team. Canada assistant coach Jasmine Mander and an analyst, Joseph Lombardi, have been removed from the Canadian team and sent home after Lombardi used a drone to spy on a Football Ferns training session in Saint Etienne. Lombardi reported directly to the assistant coach. Canadian head coach Bev Priestman has also stood herself down for the opening game against New Zealand. She says she's done that in the spirit of accountability. New Zealand's Olympic team chef de mission Nigel Avery says the team is scrambling in the wake of the scandal.
Still shock and disappointment, and disrupted is the key thing. The uncertainty of what information has been passed on and has been incorporated or not or disseminated to their opponents. They're just unsure about that. And so I guess that creates uncertainty. But as I did mention, they're a great group of women, and I think they're determined to get past this and to make it an experience that they deserve to have.
Well, the New Zealand team called the police when they saw the drone hovering over their training session, and it was the police who found and detained Joseph Lombardi as the drone pilot. Then the International Olympic Committee was then advised of Canada's attempts to spy on New Zealand's training. Nigel Avery says he's also been in contact with the Canadians.
We have been working in numerous meetings with the Canada Olympic Committee. They've been thoroughly involved in the process. We have to date, and they have apologised to us. They're deeply embarrassed. They're also shocked and disappointed as well. So, and they're obviously taking this very, very seriously and investigating the matter further.
Well, RNZ's team in Paris has been across the story today. Let's go now to Barry Guy in Paris. Hi there, Barry.
Morning.
What has New Zealand's response to this? I mean, it's such a shock, isn't it? What's the response been?
Well, I expected them actually to be a bit flippant about it, really. We've had incidents like this before in rugby internationals involving the All Blacks, and they've sort of just waved it off, really. But the reaction that Nigel Avery and his staff had when they came into the media conference today was very serious, and how, as you mentioned there, how disappointed they were, and just how they move on from this. Avery also said there that perhaps the biggest thing is the distraction. It's something that, an international team just possibly doesn't need a couple of days out from what is their biggest game of the year so far. And so that's the key thing. He did say, of course, that they've been working with them. They've had their wellness people in Saint Etienne to help with the players also. They've taken it very seriously, and as we heard from you also, Ingrid, the response from the Canadians has been serious too, sending 2 people home. And Bev Priestman, who used to work for Football New Zealand, she's decided to stand aside for this game. So, both sides, it's possibly, with the Olympic Committee looking down on them, the only option that they could take, really, because, the IOC does take these things very seriously.
Has the Canadian action, has that been enough to appease people? Are we going to move on from that?
Well, they didn't say that, and we haven't actually had a response from the team themselves. As I say, I think the team is just trying to move on. Avery was asked if he is expecting any more sort of sanctions or action that would be taken, and he said he wasn't really in a position to think about this yet, just because he was primarily trying to work with the team. I suppose so. I mean, it's a shock to them, and it's a shock to the New Zealand team, and I think they're still just trying to work out how you deal with that and recover from it. And so it could be a couple of days yet to whether we see that they have moved on from this, because Canada are the defending Olympic champions.
Yeah.
So they obviously have taken New Zealand very seriously here. What you can gain from a drone footage, really, I'm querying that also. And also, I'm somewhat surprised with the amount of security around here that drone wasn't shot down. Because, something flying over there, and it's not perhaps involved in the team in any way. You mentioned it has shocked everyone.
Yeah, you mentioned the IOC investigating. Is there precedent here? If it was found to go up higher into the Canadian camp, could they get disqualified, or do we just have to wait and see?
I wouldn't think so. I think the IOC will look at what both New Zealand and Canada has done, and if New Zealand, the officials decide that, we're not happy, but we accept what the Canadians have done by sending 2 people home, I think that'll be it.
Okay.
I don't think there'll be any further, ramifications for either side.
Now, another blow. The Football Ferns have lost their captain overnight. What's happened there? Yeah,
Ali Riley, one of their, or probably the most experienced player, she has had some injury concerns, so she is out, and Michaela Foster is coming in to fill her boots, so to speak, within the team. That's a big blow, because she more or less ran their campaign in the World Cup last year, and to be without her for this competition now is a blow. They do have a relatively younger sort of side there with a handful of experience, and to lose her, it's going to be a tough game for them, as I say, against the defending champions and one of the top ranked sides in the world.
Right, let's get on to some better news. The New Zealand Sevens team and men's football team have also been in action. How'd they get on?
That's right. The All Black Sevens, they looked a little bit scratchy to start with against Japan in their opening game. The Japanese tried a few tricks and some unusual or, outside the norm sort of tactics, and the Japanese scored 2 tries, but New Zealand came through to win 40 points to 12 in the end. There's 6 tries to 2, and they did show that little bit of extra class. And the Football Ferns, the Ollie Whites men's football team, their second ever victory at an Olympics. They beat Guinea 2-1. Matt Garbett, the captain, he missed a penalty early on, but then scored straight afterwards. Guinea replied in the second half, and it looked like it was heading to a draw perhaps, but then Ben Wayne came up, scored the goal, 2-1. Well done to the Ollie Whites, and they have to play the USA next. That's a big game before they take on the hosts. So, good start though.
That was Barry Guy talking to Ingrid Hipkiss on Morning Report. And just letting you know that New Zealand did win that second match against South Africa, 17-5. So, like I say, a perfect day for New Zealand. 2 wins for the Sevens team, 1 win for the men's football team against Guinea. fantastic day for New Zealand. All right, well, this year at the Paris Games, we have some new sports involved. Well, one new sport in particular, and some that were new in Tokyo and have been kept on and are going to be regular fixtures at the Olympic Games. So the brand new sport is breaking. I would call it breakdancing, but apparently that means I'm uncool and don't understand what's happening. But we also have the surfing, we have the skateboarding, and we have speed climbing, which has been separated off from the climbing that was done in Tokyo. So to help us understand, particularly breaking, the newest sport, the newest edition, I've called in somebody who's very hip and cool and understands breaking. It's Katie Kenny, who's RNZ's Explainer editor. Hello, Katie.
Oh, bonjour, Ben.
Bonjour. Sorry, yes, bonjour. I should have got that French there for you,
Okay,
Katie.
we're not in Paris.
Yeah. We're not in Paris. So breaking, I asked you to look into this breaking because it seems incredible to me that breakdancing, and again, I'm not supposed to call it breakdancing, am I?
Oh, you can call it breakdancing because you're unfamiliar with it. And breakdancing was a term coined by the media in the 80s when it went mainstream. But everyone in the know calls it breaking. That's what I've been told.
And so there's a lot of us who won't be in the know, but hopefully after this we'll be in the know and we will call it breaking.
Yep.
Okay, my immediate thought with breaking, I'm going to do that a lot, is that it's all about head spins and doing the caterpillar and head spins. Is that all it's about, or am I just another uncool person?
Well, there's a lot to it. And yeah, as you mentioned, this is the only new sport at the Olympic Games, and we know already that it's not going to be at the subsequent Games in Los Angeles, which has a lot of people really disappointed, given the dance sport has roots in the United States. But it also means that for people watching, you're witnessing genuinely a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for these athletes going to Paris. And to kind of understand the ins and outs of it a wee bit more, I spoke with the co-founder and leader of Aotearoa New Zealand Breaking Association, Dujon Cullingford, who said while no Kiwi dancers have qualified, he will be supporting the Australians who are heading over.
Oh, he's supporting the Aussies. That's controversial, isn't it? Or is that nice? I don't know.
Well, I mean, at least there's some representation from down under.
Yeah.
So there's a teenager, Jeff Dunn, who's just 16 from Aussie, who's going, and Rachel Gunn, who's a lecturer from Sydney. She's 36. She's also representing
Wow, that's
Australia.
quite a wide range.
Yes, yeah. So a bit of variety highlighted there. We did see breaking at the Youth Games in 2018, and it was pretty popular. So that was sort of the first Olympic event to showcase it, but this is the first Summer Games that it'll be at in Paris. We know that it's kind of following a similar format to a lot of international competitions we've seen in the last decade or so.
So how does that work? Because if I think breaking and I think like competitive formats, I'm thinking of like these movies where you get dance battles and all that sort of stuff.
Yes, I mean that's very much where it emerged in the 70s among African American and Puerto Rican communities in New York, and it's part of hip hop culture, and people will be really familiar with that kind of urban dance style that we've seen either on the streets or on screens.
Movies made about it, haven't there?
Absolutely. It's since sort of in the last 10 years especially, Cullingford told me it's become a lot more of a competitive sport on the international scene. There are people now who make a living off of it, who have really big sponsorships. We're not quite at that level yet in New Zealand, but it's not out of our reach, I was told. So it's a pretty exciting time for people who have been involved in the sport for a really long time.
So in terms of how it actually works, so these athletes or dancers, do we call them athletes or dancers, or either?
I guess either. It's a dance sport now, so it bridges.
So we can call them either, but in terms of how it works, so they are literally going to be battling each other.
That's right.
How are they going to score this? Is there, because breakdancing, there's, from what we're breaking, there's the bits where people are up on their feet and doing sort of more traditional, I don't know, hip-hop dancing, isn't there? And then there's the, like I say, the head spins and all that sort of stuff.
So let me help you out with a bit of the terminology there.
Yes, I need that.
Yeah.
I need it.
So a breaking game or a match is called a battle, as you actually assumed. The athletes are called B-boys and B-girls.
Okay.
So that's the format for the games. They've separated the categories, and there'll be 16 of each.
So it's the B-boy gold and the B-girl gold.
Correct, yeah. The dancers face off in one-on-one battles, and the whole thing is navigated by a master of ceremonies to music randomly played by a DJ.
Oh, okay.
So the DJ is obviously a really high status position and dictates the vibe of the whole thing. And it's really important, Cullingford told me, to note that the dancers have no idea what music they're going to get played. So while they can kind of loosely choreograph their moves, they really have to respond to the music in the moment, which is astounding, right? I can't think of many other sports that require that
They have to make it up as they go.
Yeah, creativity.
Because with gymnastics and stuff, they have a planned out floor routine. They know exactly what they're doing.
Yeah.
But these guys and girls are going to have to come up with it on the fly.
Yeah, they just have to respond to the music, which is pretty exciting.
Quite a bit
watch.
of responsibility for the DJ. I hope
Totally.
Do we know who the DJ is going to be? I hope they bring in someone like Daft Punk. Imagine that.
There are some really experienced DJs who kind of do this all over the world, so I'm sure that they've chosen the best of the best. But yeah, going back to some of those common breaking terms so that you can understand the sport a bit better and sound a bit cooler. We've already covered off that it's generally called breaking, and the three basic elements are top rock, down rock, and freeze. So freeze is pretty self-explanatory. It's when a breaker freezes in an unusual position.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that, yep.
Such as on the head or their hands. And that's done kind of in the middle of a routine. Lots of people clap. It looks cool. Top rock refers to all the moves that are performed while standing up.
Right.
Like fancy hands, fancy feet, that kind of thing.
Jazz hands.
Well, breaking hands.
Probably not jazz hands.
But although it does incorporate obviously lots of other dance styles, particularly that part. Down rock is really the highlight of the performance. That's all of the moves done on the floor, as you'd expect. And you see things like the spins and transitions, and most importantly, the power moves. And the power moves are those gravity-defying acrobatic moments that breaking is known for. So you've got your flares, which are common moves that look like something you'd see actually on a pommel horse in artistic gymnastics, if you know what I'm referring to. So it involves balancing the torso on alternating arms and swinging the legs underneath in circles. An air flare, again, sort of a step up from a flare, is done when you're upside down while hopping from arm to arm and moving in circles.
Oh, yes, I've seen this, yeah. I guess this is where, because there'll be a lot of people saying, come on, breaking isn't a sport, like how is this at the Olympics? But when you see the people doing these sorts of moves, and I mean, that is undeniably athletic.
Oh,
that is
incredible strength, balance, flexibility. It's truly athletic moves that they're doing, gymnastics and acrobatics and, such a combination of different sports that we already see at the Olympics done in this really creative freestyle way. So absolutely they're athletes. It's a shame that we don't have more space here, Ben, because I would demonstrate. But,
I know you're an athlete, Katie. Back in a past life, we worked together, Katie and I, at a rival media place at Stuff. And during, what was it? Was it the 2016 Olympics for Rio? I think we were tasked with coming up with the Office Olympics, which, I mean, funnily enough, it didn't make the light of day, but we made a lot of videos on how to do these Office Olympics. Yeah. And I just want the listeners to know that Katie Kenny, there was part of it where it was a race where there was a piggyback races in the office. And for our video, Katie Kenny decided, actually, Ben, I'll piggyback you for the video, wearing these long high heels. It was very impressive, the confidence that you showed. I mean, it didn't work out. You couldn't piggyback me. I'm far too heavy.
I think am I
misremembering?
I think you're misremembering.
Yeah, but it was a stunning display of athleticism from you.
Thank you.
I've also come up against Katie in some sporting debates, and I've failed miserably, particularly about cycling. Katie knows her cycling. Doesn't mind a drugs cheat, does Katie? But is that harsh or?
That's a bit harsh. But you know what? We we might see a bit of that at this game. Who knows? You know,
who knows?
It's
That's
an
right.
interesting time.
So good times in the past there, Katie.
Yes.
I
have a long
full
history
confidence that you could do a head spin in the office here.
Yes, I could, but we don't have enough space. This isn't televised, so there's no point.
Tragic.
So we'll leave it. We'll leave it there.
Well, breaking sounds incredibly interesting. There are these other sports as well, which are, I guess, evolving in some ways. They started, for instance, the climbing. It started in Tokyo, didn't it? But they've made some changes since, with the speed climbing being separate.
Yeah. Yes, that's right. We did see sport climbing at Tokyo, and it was really successful there. It's a relatively young and modern sport. Nearly 40% of climbers are under 18, according to the International Federation of Sport Climbing. Bouldering, in particular, apparently post-Tokyo, has really taken off. And I was telling you earlier that you can do these sort of DIY walls in your house, and
you're going to make one.
I have looked into it. I have a very potentially a good climber in my 2-year-old. I think. I haven't gone quite that
far. Not many parents would try to foster the climbing of their 2-year-old.
Well, if it prevents them climbing other things, then
that's a good.
It might work out well. But the Tokyo Games, it was a unique format where they combined the 3 disciplines, the boulder, the lead and the speed climbing, for a single medal event. And that was quite controversial, as our colleague Dana Johansson has explained in an earlier piece, because bouldering and lead require very different skills from speed climbing. So we do have 2 athletes from New Zealand competing in speed climbing. That's Sarah Tetzlaff and Julian David. They're our first representatives in that event over there. And speed climbing is a sprint up this 15-metre high wall, and it's got a 5-degree overhang. The hand and footholds are always positioned in the same spot, fixed at the same angle. And you blink and you miss it, basically.
Yeah, what is it, 4 or 5 seconds?
The top male climbers in the world, it takes them less than 5 seconds to get to the top of the wall. And the women's world record sits at just over 6 seconds. So it's a truly exciting event to watch.
So it's like the 100-metre sprint, but you're climbing, essentially. It's just climbing. Over before you know it.
Exactly, yeah. So fortunately for Tetzlaff and David, the IOC allocated climbing an additional medal for Paris. So it's split off from those other 2 codes, allowing for a separate event. So the bouldering and the lead event, those scores will be combined for a single medal event.
And we don't have anyone on those events, just the speed climbing.
Just the speed climbing.
Our speed climbers, I was reading Dana Johansson's piece, and I think it was played on the radio this week as well. They're like junior world champs. They're like really good.
Yes.
Climbers in the youth stuff. So you just never know when they turn up, when you make that step into the senior ranks, head off for an Olympic gold medal, who knows?
Exactly. And with the margins being so small, fractions of a second can make a difference. You never know how it's going to go on the day. So.
Wow. And you mentioned that the athletes are all very, very young. That's the same thing for the skateboarding. I saw that one of the favourites for the skateboarding, Katie, is 14 years old. She's born in 2010.
Yes, we're seeing some really young athletes come through with the skateboarding, and some of the young women in particular. It's so impressive.
It's amazing. I did see the youngest ever Olympic gold medalist was from, I think, 1910 or something like that, way back when, 1908. It was a 12-year-old boy who was the cox in a boat, which is quite funny. They were just sitting in the front, and not a bad option, I would have thought. Back in the day.
Want someone small,
but now we've got genuinely young athletes taking this on with the skateboarding. I guess it's another thing we'll be watching where we don't necessarily understand all of the tricks and stuff, but judges will be judging that, and that's how they decide it all.
Yeah, so skateboard, unfortunately, New Zealand doesn't have anyone going to Paris. We're hoping to have our first representatives at the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028. But regardless, it will be a really good one to watch. We'll see the world's best skateboarders competing in the 2 most popular disciplines. So there are, lots of disciplines in skateboarding, but what you'll see in Paris is park and street skateboarding. So the park competition takes place on a varied course combining bowls and bends, and the athletes are judged by the height and the speed of their tricks that they carry out during jumps, as well as their ability to use the entire surface and all of the obstacles. So they perform 3 45-second runs, with the best counting as their final score. So the street event takes place on a course that is designed to look like a street or an urban environment. So it's got stairs, handrails, benches, that kind of thing. Again, the athletes perform a range of tricks and are also judged on how well they control their board during 2 45-second runs and 5 tricks that they carry out.
Are you also good at skateboarding, Katie?
No, absolutely not.
I can't seem to master it either. I wonder if they're going to just transform the streets of Paris to look like our car parking building. I've seen a few skateboarders up there probably practicing for the Los Angeles games, no doubt. They're probably gold medalists in the making, no doubt, with their filming it all and making sure they get all that footage. Now when I do see people skating on the streets and they're filming it, I'm going to have a different thought process. It used to just be because it looks cool, but now maybe they're just reviewing their technique and making sure that they're ready.
Yeah, maybe
got to
they're
give
in
them
training.
the benefit of the doubt.
You do.
The other one, which I'm particularly excited about because Tahiti must be one of my favourite places in the world. I've been to the place where they're going to be doing the surfing in Tahiti.
Wow.
What's cool about it is they've got the breaks going off in both directions, and in this channel, it's fascinating. You go out there in the boat, and it almost stays perfectly flat. And then off to the side, you can basically look down the barrel of the wave and see the surfers coming down the wave. So the footage you can get from the boats and that sort of thing it's incredible. It was amazing.
Okay.
So we were watching surfers. The scary bit is the reef is savage. You don't want to go too close to the reef because you will get busted up. But second time at the Olympics, and it's in the heart of the Pacific.
Yeah. It's I was reading that it's one of the furthest distances an event has ever been,
it's
from
9,000 miles away or something, isn't it?
Well, but what an amazing place to host this surfing competition. And obviously New Zealand has 2 surfers heading over. Billy Stearman and Safi Vetti will be going. It's Stearman's second games and Vetti's first. So it's as you mentioned, it's pretty different. Even if people have watched the event in Tokyo, what we will see in Tahiti will be different simply because of the different waves, right? It's such a different kind of setup. And so that makes it really exciting, and I think there's a lot of excitement among the athletes as well to surf what's known as one of the best waves in the world.
Absolutely, yeah. I Corin Dan, who hosts Morning Report, massive surfing fan, and whenever there's a Surf Masters or something happening during the program, he's got it up on the computer watching the surfing. So no doubt when the surfing's happening, he'll be bringing us the latest on the show, and he'll be able to explain some of the scoring works, because that would be
helpful.
It's quite complicated, isn't it?
It is quite complicated. Yeah, I mean they the surfers perform manoeuvres and tricks on a wave, and the judges, I think there are 5 of them, score them on their variety, the type of trick, the difficulty, and they're also judged on things like their speed and their power and the flow, like how seamlessly they can go from one move into the next. So it's difficult for judges too. Some of these sports are really
especially when, as we say, the barrel can just be surrounding them, so they can be deep in there. How are you even supposed to? I guess that's part of it as well, from my understanding, is that if they're deep in a barrel and stay in there for a long time and then shoot out of it, judges are like, bravo.
Yeah.
Fantastic. That's so that'll be a very, very fun watch. Well, thank you very much for doing this for us, Katie. I look forward to seeing you doing some head spins and stuff very soon. I do want to see it. You've said you can do it, so I'm going to have to, take you up on that.
Yeah, well, we can have our own little breaking battle here, maybe.
That is Katie Keddy. She is our explainer editor here at RNZ, just explaining the brand new sport breaking and some of the ones that have been retained, some of the new boys who have been retained from the Tokyo Olympics. So we've got the skateboarding, the surfing, and of course the speed climbing, which has been broken off from the bouldering and stuff. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks, Ben.
Now, there was also some pretty big international news from Paris overnight. It's Still kind of on the spying angle, I guess, from earlier, but this time we're talking about a Russian chef who has been working to destabilise the Olympic Games. We're talking espionage. Apparently he's been charged under the Espionage Act over in France. So it's a big story in the French capital. Our Paris correspondent, should I say, Ross Cullen, talked to Corin Dan on Morning Report.
A Russian chef has been arrested in Paris on suspicion of plotting to stage large-scale acts of, quote, destabilisation during the Olympic Games. It comes just days before the Games get underway, of course. Well, they're actually underway already, aren't they? With the opening ceremony, at least, set to take place in central Paris on Friday, local time. Joining us from Paris is our correspondent, Ross Cullen. Hi, Ross.
Kia ora, Corin. Hi.
Listen, this sounds very strange. It's destabilisation. What's this all about?
Yeah, it's a Russian man who's been living in France for quite a while. He has apparently taken some high-level courses, Michelin-starred training courses to be a chef, and then had been working as one in ski resorts and actually appeared on some Russian reality TV cooking shows. But he has been arrested on suspicion of destabilisation and supplying information to a foreign power. The Russian embassy here wanted to know more about it. There had been warnings of a Russian cyber campaign, and Moscow has been denying that was ever something that was going to happen. But the man is known by just one initial at the moment, K, has been arrested. So there are these threats. We know that the torch relay has been disrupted, or attempted to be disrupted, by people who are plotting to interfere with the torch relay. And now a man arrested in Paris on day one. I mean, the day that the sporting action gets underway.
So it's not a terror issue necessarily, but I imagine that there's a lot of high alert on that score.
Yeah, I mean, just looking out across Paris, it's impossible to move anywhere without police. There are some 45,000 police officers across the centre of the French capital, including 1,000 police officers from different countries who've come to support their French counterparts. There are hundreds of soldiers patrolling, police helicopters in the sky, and kettle fences, so security perimeters and barriers. A lot of roads are blocked off. You have to show a QR code, like you did back in the days of coronavirus lockdowns. Show a QR code to access different parts of the centre of Paris. So there is a lockdown. There has been a lot of work by the Interior Ministry and the French Special Intelligence Services to try to keep a lid on any possible threats.
There you have it. That is our Paris correspondent, Ross Cullen, talking to Corin Dan on Morning Report. That is us for today. Another episode of Paris Essentials in the books. Day one completed at the Paris Olympics. Very exciting. New Zealand unbeaten. Hopefully that will continue tomorrow. We have the Football Ferns. They're playing against Canada, those pesky, cheating Canadians. They're coming up against them at 3 a.m. New Zealand time. So a must watch. If they do lose, we've got a very good excuse. And the Sevens team, the New Zealand men's Sevens team, they have a chance to win their pool. They're playing against Ireland tomorrow morning at about 4 a.m. And then if they win that, they will top the pool. They'll play in the quarterfinals from 7 a.m. And of course, if they win that quarterfinal, then they're guaranteed to play in a medal match. So fingers crossed for them. Hopefully it's another good day for New Zealand. Then at the weekend, we'll have the opening ceremony and so on and so forth. Thank you very much for joining us on Paris Essentials for today. We will be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. We're, of course, putting out an episode tous les jours every day during the Paris Olympics. And you can find us wherever you get your podcasts. Make sure you follow and listen to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Au revoir.